multiply and divide with more than one term. Multiply, distribute. You can multiply if things are both inside or both outside the root. Example 1. The square root of 5 times x plus the square root of 3. The square root of 5 times x is x square root of 5. The square root of 5 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 15, because 5 and 3 are both in. Example 2, the square root of 6 times 7 minus the square root of 6. The square root of 6 times 7 is 7 square root of 6. The square root of 6 times the square root of 6. Multiply 6 times 6 because they're both inside. Then the square root of 36 equals 6. Multiply, FOIL, since we are multiplying a binomial times a binomial. Example 3. 7 plus the square root of 2 times 8 plus the square root of 2. Remember, don't add those things together. They're not like terms. FOIL. First, 7 times 8 is 56. Outside, 7 times the square root of 2, 7 square root of 2. Inside, 8 times the square root of 2, 8 square root of 2. Last, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, square root of 4. The O and the I in the middle are like terms. 7 square roots of 2 plus 8 square roots of 2 are 15 square roots of 2. At the end there, the square root of 4 equals 2. Now we can add the 56 plus 2 equals 58. 58 plus 15 square root of 2. Don't add any more. They're not like terms. Example 4. FOIL, because we have a binomial times a binomial. First, 7 times 5 is 35. Outside, 7 times negative 3 square roots of 7 is negative 21 square root of 7. Inside, negative 2 square root of 7 times 5 is negative 10 square root of 7. Last, we're going to multiply the 2 times 3 is 6. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 is square root of 49. I'm going to add those like terms in the middle. Minus 21 root 7 minus 10 root 7 is minus 31 root 7. At the end, I'm going to take the square root of 49 equals 7. Then I'm going to multiply the 6 times 7 equals 42. Now I'm going to add 35 plus 42 is 77. 77 minus 31 square root of 7 is the answer. I can't subtract because they're not like terms. Example 5. Squared means write it times itself. First, the square root of 2x times the square root of 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. Outside, I have the square root of 2x times negative y will be negative square root of 2xy. All of those things are inside. My inside term, negative y times the square root of 2x, is negative square root of 2xy. Last, negative times negative equals positive. Square root of y times square root of y, square root of y squared. Those are like terms in the middle. Minus minus is understood minus 1 root would be minus 2 root. At the front there, the square root of 4x squared, the square root of 4 is 2. And for x squared, take half of 2 is 1. At the very end, the square root of y squared, take half of 2 gives you 1. The square root of y squared is y. Example 6, FOIL. 4 minus the square root of x times 3 minus the square root of x. FOIL, first, 4 times 3 is 12. Outside, 4 times negative square root of x is negative 4 square root of x. Inside, negative x times 3 is negative 3 square root of x. Last, negative times negative is positive. The square root of x times square root of x is square root of x squared. The O and the I in the middle there are like terms. Minus 4 root minus 3 root is minus 7 square root. At the end, the square root of x squared is x, because you take half of the variable's exponent. Half of 2 is 1. Divide. Rationalize the denominator. Make it not have a square root. If the denominator is a monomial, one piece, multiply the top and bottom by the square root that is on the bottom. What you multiply the top of a fraction, you must also multiply on the bottom to keep it equal. Example 7, rationalize 2 divided by the square root of 5. So we're going to multiply top and bottom there by a square root of 5 over square root of 5. Then multiply straight across. 2 times the square root of 5, 2 square root of 5. The square root of 5 times square root of 5, square root of 25. On bottom, the square root of 25 equals 5. So 2 square root of 5 divided by 5. That gets the square root out of the denominator. That's what rationalize the denominator means. Example 8. Rationalize the square root of 7 divided by the square root of 3. Multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. On top, the square root of 7 times square root of 3 is square root of 21, because 7 and 3 are both inside. On bottom, square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9, because 3 and 3 are both inside. On the bottom, the square root of 9 equals 3. Example 9. Rationalize the square root of 6 divided by the square root of x. Multiply top and bottom by the square root that's on the bottom. So multiply top and bottom by square root of x over square root of x. On top, the square root of 6 times square root of x, square root of 6x. On bottom, the square root of x times square root of x. X times x is x squared. On the bottom, the square root of x squared, you take half of 2 and you get 1. So that's x in the denominator. Example 10. Rationalize 12 divided by the square root of 3y. So multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3y. On top, the 12 outside, you can't multiply it by the 3y that's on the inside. They're not in the same place. So you have 12 times the square root of 3y. In the bottom, both of those 3y's are inside, so you can multiply. 3 times 3 is 9. Y times y is y squared. So you have the square root of 9y squared. We can take the square root of 9y squared. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of y squared is y, because we take half of the 2 equals y to the 1. And then we can divide 12 divided by 3 equals 4. So 4 square root of 3y divided by y. Example 11, rationalize the square root of 5 divided by the square root of x. Multiply top and bottom by the square root of x. On top, square root of 5, square root of x, square root of 5x. On bottom, x times x is x squared. We can take the square root of x squared, take half of 2 is 1. So x to the 1 on bottom. If the denominator has 2 parts, you multiply the top and bottom by the opposite of the sign of what is in the bottom. What you multiply on top, you must multiply on bottom. Example 12, rationalize 3 divided by 4 plus the square root of 6. Okay, notice that the denominator has 2 parts. You can't just multiply by the square root of 6. It won't get rid of the denominator. It won't get rid of the square root in the denominator. So what we're going to multiply top and bottom by is the opposite of 4 plus. So we're going to multiply by 4 minus. So they both get a 4 minus square root of 6. Distribute on top. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times negative square root of 6x is negative 3 square root of 6x. On bottom, you FOIL. First, 4 times 4 is 16. Outside, 4 times negative square root of x, negative 4 square root of x. Inside, 4 times square root of 6 is 4 square root of 6. Last, square root of 6 times negative square root of 6 is negative square root of 36. Okay. I canceled the minus 4 root plus 4 root. Minus 4 plus 4 is 0. The negative square root of 36 becomes negative 6 on the bottom there. Okay, the minus 4 root plus 4 root cancels. The minus square root of 36 became minus 6. Square root of 36 is 6. Now, last step, 16 minus 6 equals 10 on bottom. Example 13, rationalize 17 divided by the square root of 10 minus 2. The denominator has square root of 10 minus 2, so multiply top and bottom by square root of 10 plus 2. Distribute on top. 17 times the square root of 10, 17 square root of 10. 17 times 2 is 34. FOIL on bottom because it's 2 and 2. First, square root of 10 times square root of 10 is square root of 100. Outside, square root of 10 times 2 is 2 square root of 10. Inside, negative 2 times the square root of 10, negative 2 square root of 10. Last, negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Okay, in the denominator, square root of 100 equals 10. Plus 2 root minus 2 root is 0. Bring down the minus 4. In the denominator, 10 minus 4 equals 6. So you can see we got rid of the square root in the bottom. That's what rationalize means. That's the end.